Hi everyone, we are Kriti. In today's presentation, we have Sammy, Anson, Taryn, Iris, and me, Johnny. In today's presentation, we have 4 parts in total. The first part is the chapter summary, and the second part is the problem and application on question 3, and the third part is for question 8, and the last part is the Q&A and discussion. So let's move on to the chapter summary. This is the very important formula to count the aggregate demand, and it is composed of the consumer spending plus investment plus government spending plus exports and leave the imports. First of all, let us remind some basic concept of this chapter. Here is the table to show the difference between the expansionary monetary policy and the tight monetary policy. The required reserve rate, discount rate, and interest rate will decrease when the expansionary monetary policy, and they will increase when tight monetary policy. And only the currency issued will increase when expansionary monetary policy about the market operation. It will purchase when expansionary monetary policy and sell when the tight monetary policy. So the fact about the expansionary monetary policy, when unemployment and there is deflationary gap, the employment rate is lower than the national employment level. The government will adopt this policy to increase the interest rates by increasing the money supply, thereby to stimulating the investment and private consumption, and the increase in demand case the price level will increase, so the output level will also increase. The picture shows that the word effect about the tight monetary policy. When the economy is overheated, the inflation employment level is higher than the national employment level. The government will adopt the tight monetary policy by reducing the money supply's interest rate, raising, and the private market is declining total demand, and resulting in the price will declines. The output levels is low, and the national employment level is low.
Now I will tell you what is fiscal policy before we are going to see the effect of the AD model. We can be expansionary and contractionary fiscal policy. However, we are going to see these two policies how to change the government purchases and the tax. Expansionary policy refers to the government's increase the output or decrease their net tax. As a result, you can see in the graph is make the AD increase and make it the AD curve will slope of the right. However, in the contractionary, we can see that it have little different. Is the AD will slower in on the left, and also that means the price will be decreased because contractionary is mean that the government expenditure will be decreased, but in the net tax is increasing. We know that fiscal policy can be expansionary and contractionary, but they have multiplier effect and counting out effect. How to make the government purchases and the tax increasing or decreasing? First, I would like to tell you the definition of multiplier effect. Multiplier effect is mean that the additional shift is in an AD that result when expansionary fiscal policy increases income and thereby increases consumer spending. I have telling you what is multiplier effect in last slide. In this slide, it is the graph to explain why multiplier effect is make the AD curve should be sloping to the right. However, it is also explain the multiplier effect is only changing in expansionary fiscal policy, not changing in contractionary policy. Second, I would like to talk about what is the cutting out effect. Cutting out effect is the result when a fiscal expansion raises the interest rate. Although the multiplier effect and cutting out effect is the same to affect the policy. However, the cutting out effect has the difference is it is raising the interest rate, but the multiplier effect is not raising the interest rate. In this graph, it is telling us the carrying out how to evaluate the AD model when it is raising the interest rate. Just like in the graph, it is explained when an increase in government purchases increased the AD curve. The increase in spending increases money demand, which increases the equilibrium interest rate. Lastly, in the graph B, you can see that which in turn part B offsets the initial increases in the AD curve. In the conclude, in this chapter, it teaches how the monetary and fiscal policy can change the monetary injection, government purchases, and taxes in the long run. Also, it teaches us how the monetary changing the AD model. More important things are monetary and fiscal policy make AD model increases. There are no inefficiency in the long run. So now I will give my good Miss Taryn to tell another part about the problems and application.
On, I would like to cover problems and applications, question 3. So the following question asks us to consider two policies. The first one, where a tax cut will last for only 1 year, while the second tax cut is expected to be permanent, as in forever. So the question is asking which policy will stimulate greater spending by consumers, as well as which policy will have greater impact on aggregate demand. On, I would like to cover. Before I answer the question, I would like to explain what a tax cut is. So a tax cut is intended to induce consumer spending by increasing the disposable income in hand. This will consequently increase the aggregate demand. As for the question, a temporary tax cut will not affect the consumer spending substantially, as the consumers will perceive this as a short-term change. They will not see this as a decrease in the tax. Therefore, they will not fully spend the additional income that they got from the tax cut.
Thus, the consumer spending will not increase as intended. As for permanent tax cut, this will have a greater impact on the consumer spending. As this policy is perceived as permanent, the consumers will view this as a higher disposable income. Therefore, they will try to spend more on current purchases or on long-term investments. This will increase the consumer spending and the aggregate demand. To conclude, the permanent tax cut is much better than the tax cut for 1 year, since there is a higher increase in disposable income compared to the temporary tax cut, and that there is higher spending of consumers on the additional disposable income, as well as the temporary tax cut have a greater impact on the aggregate demand.
Now I'm going to talk about Purpose and Applications 8. First, the government reduces taxes by $20 billion. That there's no crowding out, and that the marginal propensity to consume is 3/4. And then we have 3 questions to discuss. The first question is the initial effect of the tax reduction on aggregate demand. Before we calculate the aggregate demand, we should know what marginal propensity to consume is. Marginal propensity to consume is the proportion of an increase in income that gets spent on consumption. And marginal propensity to consume equals to change in consumption divided by change in income. I'm going to give you an example for better understanding. Suppose you receive a $500 bonus on top of your normal annual earnings. You suddenly have $500 more in income than you did before. If you decided to spend $400 of this marginal increase in income on a new suit and save the remaining $100, your marginal propensity to consume will be $400 divided by $500 equals to 0.8. If you decided to save the entire $500, your marginal propensity to consume will be 0. The initial effect of tax reduction on aggregate would be an increase in aggregate demand as the disposable income of the people increase. Increase in income lead to an increase in consumption. But the proportion of marginal propensity to consume is 3/4. So, increase in aggregate demand equals to $50 billion. Then we move to the question B. What additional effects follow this initial effect? What is the total effect of the tax cut on aggregate demand? Using the same method, we can get other effects after the initial effect, and I listed 3 results. We can find that the multiplier effect continues even after this first round. Adding up all the taxes gives a total effect that depends on the multiplier, with a marginal propensity to consume of 3/4. According to the formula for calculating the multiplier, we can figure out that the multiplier is 4, and the total effect is $60 billion. Question C. How does the total effect of this $30 billion tax cut compare to the total effect of a $30 billion increase in government purchases? Why?
Firstly, we have to figure out the total effect of an increase in government purchases. And we get the answer is $80 billion. Since both government purchases and tax deduction have a direct impact on aggregate demand, the effects of these two actions are compared. We can see the government purchases have a bigger effect on output than tax deduction.
So now this is the Q&A section. Question 1. Which is the correct formula of aggregate demand? The answer is C. Question 2. Which is the incorrect reasons of aggregate demand curve slopes downward? The answer is B. Question 3. Which is the incorrect characteristic about automatic stabilizers? The answer is D. Now we are going to the discussion part. Suppose the government spends $3 billion to build a hospital in city center, and this expenditure is covered by the government's reserves. What will happen? As we can see, this is the key sentence in the question. From this sentence, we know that when government expenditure increase, the aggregate demand increase. We can think about what will happen when the aggregate demand increase. Run. The total output increase because of the increase in government expenditure. Also, there are more job opportunities in short run. So, the employment level increase and this eventually increase in total output. In long run, the output level will increase and cost ineffective in long run because of the decrease in price. Therefore, when the price decrease, the long run aggregate supply increase. That's all for our presentation. Thank you.